So we have a few people trickling in.
Okay.
Good, good.
I guess I don't get to see people.
No.
Probably not. Okay. I miss real life when you get to see people in real life.
We'll get one day soon enough, I hope. Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you very much for joining us in this alumni webinar series. Our guest tonight is Amy Gill, Operational Manager at HSBC. Amy has an accomplished corporate career at a global bank designing strategic development initiatives, mentoring and coaching, and facilitating seminars and events for senior leaders across the globe. Amy didn't excel academically, and university was a struggle, from wrestling with her sexuality, traveling home to Wales on a weekly basis to be with an ill relative, and struggling to keep her head above water with her degree. It never seemed to let up. Through trial and error, a passion for self-development, and working with some of the most accomplished leaders in the financial industry, she has identified the key elements that have held her back and the specific shifts that allowed her to make significant changes to her life. So, welcome, Amy. Thank you very much for giving us your time. And I just stop sharing and you can share your screen if that's okay.
Brill, thank you. Well, that's quite an introduction. I actually feel quite awkward, a little bit of pressure now to follow up from that. So thank you for that, Dylan. That's I guess quite an introduction. I'm going to try and live up to that expectation. I'm now going to try and just share my screen, guys, before I kick off, just to make sure that I'm technically doing what I should be. So hopefully you can all see that page.
It's looking good.
Okay, so look, before we kick off, then, first of all, thank you very much for joining, everyone. I'm really excited to come and speak to you guys, and I guess the reason is Oxford Brookes is obviously the university that I went to, so it's pretty cool to come and speak to, I guess, my own community. I suppose I'm kind of more excited because I think you as a community are perhaps the most receptive to change or new perspectives, and I hope today, after we have a chat, that you might have a new perspective or some new tools that you can use even in the kind of COVID environment. So what am I going to talk to you about today? So lots of things, really. I know I've got confidence up on the slide, but it's confidence, it's decision making, it's understanding your own emotions, how to manage your self-doubt, etc., etc. I guess all of that kind of comes under the umbrella of mindset. And I appreciate some of you will think, oh, God, mindset, I don't want to think about mindset. Like, I want some hacks or some, tips that will help me in the workplace, whatever it might be. But hold your horses. The reason why I kind of talk about this more than anything else is because it's the thing that makes the most difference. And trust me, it's what I talk about most now, day to day, and certainly professionally and personally. For me, it has made the most significant changes. I think it's very easy. I was certainly of the frame of mind that, information is power. When I was kind of finishing university, I thought, if I know lots of things, that will mean I'm successful. If I know lots of things about work, I will get the promotion. And actually, how many of you guys have probably heard a piece of information at a seminar or a workshop that that will benefit you, but you still don't actually implement it, myself included in that, which doesn't make any sense if you know that it would be good for you. And the truth is, just knowing stuff doesn't make the difference. It's how you actually put it into practice or make changes or try things. I think very often people get that kind of mixed up because they might know a bunch of stuff. I appreciate for some industries, obviously, it's important. So today I want to kind of do a little bit of a hybrid of I would usually do like a longer workshop where I talk about maybe some specific subjects. So I'll do a bit of a hybrid on a workshop and a speaker slot. So I'll try and kind of pull out key themes that I can that I think will be really, really helpful. And then also just, I guess, tell you a little bit of background about me. So I guess the last thing to say is I'm intelligent enough to know that I don't have all of the answers. This is just kind of my experience going through the trenches of life and learning what I have. And secondly, I kind of share a lot of my experiences. And the reason why I do it is because I think it's important from a credibility perspective to show you I've done things that I said I do now, and I've tried stuff and I've got a bit of trial and error. But also, I think the important thing to say is nothing that I kind of show you guys today is to impress you or make you think that I'm big and clever. If anything, I'm trying to do the opposite. I'm trying to show you all of the times that I've messed up and failed monumentally, and then the times that have gone right, and to try and kind of draw comparisons or show you the difference. So what are we going to talk about first? So the very first thing I'd like to talk about is communication. Let's see if I can work this slide. Am I still on? I think so. So the very first thing, like I said, is communication. And I don't mean communication in the kind of broadest sense, which I appreciate some of you guys might. Communication is an incredibly important subject. It's something that you can use, yes, but communication, I mean, in terms of internal communication. Now, some of you guys are going, yeah, I don't talk to myself, so this isn't as relevant to me. But you actually talk to yourself more than you realize. So communication with yourself, if I give an example of, you can have something happen to you, like somebody dumps you, which I'm sure we can all relate to on some level. Somebody dumps you. You can either communicate that to yourself as, well, of course they dumped me, I'm absolutely hopeless, why would they want to be with me? Or you can communicate that to yourself as, goodness, they've left me, I finally have the opportunity to meet the right person for me, thank goodness. It's the same event, two very different kind of meanings attributed to it, two very different sets of emotions you're probably going to feel, and two very different sets of actions that you're likely to take. But it's the same event. And this really is the secret to your day-to-day decision making, and it happens subconsciously and it happens in the moment. So often people think, oh, these kind of decisions, these big life-changing decisions where I took one career over another, where I went on the date and met the person I married, or I missed the train and didn't, and missed the job that I absolutely didn't want to go for. If you think about these decisions that happen in a moment, I think people often think the clouds part and divine intervention steps in and you weigh up the pros and cons and you make this decision, when in reality it happens just in a moment, in a second, how you feel at the time. And this is the kind of power of understanding that, hang on a minute, when I make these decisions in the moment, the meaning I attribute to it, to the event, is actually the secret to what I'm going to do about it. So if I talk about my kind of first experience with communication then, so this is a photo of me, and I'm probably like 7 or 8 here. And to give you guys a bit of background, I grew up in South Wales in a really small town, from an average family. We weren't rich, we weren't poor. The area was quite deprived, and there wasn't a lot in terms of job opportunities. It was a really like touristy kind of area. And this is me, like I said, about 7 or 8. And I think this is probably the point where I started getting bullied at school. So I was bullied at primary school. And again, kind of looking back, it's much easier to do it this way. But this is the first time I really had any kind of communication with myself that I'm aware of. So I remember really distinctly coming down the school bell had gone. I ran down the stairs to the schoolyard and turned around the corner, and Charlotte was stood in front of me, the girl who'd been picking on me for the last 2 years. And she said, what are you wearing, Amy? You look like such a loser. And I looked down at what I was wearing, and it was a pair of shorts that I'd pleaded with my mum to buy at the weekend because I knew that she wore them, and if I wore them, then she couldn't pick on me for what I was wearing. But I was like, well, I'm wearing the shorts that you wear. How can I look like an idiot or a loser or whatever? And she said, you just don't get it. It doesn't matter what you wear. It doesn't matter what you do. You'll always be a loser. And then kind of sauntered off. I don't remember really being upset at the time, but I do remember kind of pondering on what it meant. And if I can think about it, number one, what's my focus? What's happening? I'm being rejected. Number two, what does it mean? I'm just, I'm always gonna have these problems. I'm never gonna be good enough. I'm not gonna be like these girls. They were more academic than me. They seemed kind of more popular. People seemed to gravitate towards them more than me. And that will never be me. I'll always struggle. I'll always be a bit of an outsider, even if I have the shorts to kind of blend in. What action do I take? Retreat. I don't really want to put myself out there. I don't want to engage anymore, because I'm just kind of scared of being hurt or picked on or singled out for any reason. And so I went off to another school. I left that school. I went through kind of comprehensive school, did okay, but like so academically. But in terms of my confidence just went down and down and down and down and down until my kind of late teens, where, I would hardly go out really. I would just kind of see my friends. Even though I had perceived confidence, I'd be really silly and outgoing and gregarious in school. My actual real confidence was, just kind of rock bottom. So fast forward a few years to university, and I wanted to go to Oxford Brookes University. I say this to everybody, and I always kind of get, "Oh," is my initial reaction, and that's not what my intention. But university for me was a struggle. It wasn't the same experience. It certainly wasn't the experience that I thought it was going to be. So 3 or 4 months before I was due to go away, my grandmother, who I absolutely adored and who I was so close to, had a very, very severe stroke. And it left her unable to speak. She was paralyzed, and the kind of doctors said, look, 6 or 8 weeks, she'll probably pass away. She's in her 80s. And for some reason, I kind of, again, got in my head that, she's so close to passing away, I need to make sure that I'm coming back really frequently to see her. I don't want to leave it too long and then have all these kind of regrets and stuff. So that's what I did. I traveled back from Oxford Brookes every year. So it's like a 4-hour drive. It's like 300 miles. And I would spend like 4 days in university and then come home for 3 days, which was exhausting. And it meant that I was never really settled in university, and I was never really settled at home. I was just constantly living out of a suitcase. And as you can imagine, my grades deteriorated. I couldn't really keep up. And then I guess the worst thing was I was never there, and it became a bit of a joke that I didn't come to the parties. I wasn't there at the events. I wasn't there when, at the moments, the kind of my flatmates were talking about. And it just felt really unfair that I had all this going on and everyone else just had to worry about what they were drinking at the weekend. And there was one kind of point in my second year, my grandmother was still going. She was, there was no sign of any further issues at that point. And in my second year, I went out, well, on the very rare occasion I was actually there, I went out with some flatmates and got terribly drunk, which is what you do when you feel kind of rubbish and you just want to forget the pain and the kind of upset that you're feeling. And I came home, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was throwing up in the bathroom and everyone else had gone to bed. And I just sat on the bathroom floor and just felt just so terrible. I felt so sad. I felt so lonely and just, I guess, kind of depressed. And I started to cry thinking, how is this my life? I'm 20 years old and I just seem more unhappy than anyone else that I know. And it just seems so unfair. I was not just doing badly at my exams, I was failing. I had done resits my first year. This was my second year. I think if I failed another 2, that was it. I'd be out and I'd need to resit the year. And I knew I couldn't afford to do that. I missed my gran. I missed the relationship I had with her. And I hated the fact that I was now starting to resent the fact that I was going home all the time. Nobody was asking me to do this, really. It was just me putting this pressure on myself. And it was starting to ruin or sour the relationship I felt I had with my nan. And then at the same time, I had realized I'd played with the idea for a couple of years and it was always kind of niggling at me, but I had absolutely realized that I was gay and there was no hiding it anymore. I didn't want to be gay. I didn't have a problem with being gay. It was more the process of it. Where I'm from, I'd literally never met a gay person in my life. Everybody's quite conservative. It's a very small kind of rural community I'm from, and I knew that the reaction I would get would certainly not be positive. I had a friend in school when I was about 15 who I just got on really well with. We just seemed to have a different chemistry to other people. And everyone kind of joked, you're like a married couple, and we were inseparable. She was like my best friend. On reflection, probably not the best friendship. I kind of idolized her and would, do these ridiculous acts of kind of servitude and I again kind of idolize her and she'd dictate whatever we did. But I finally, it was just bothering me so much, and I just so desperately wanted somebody to talk to about it that I, on the phone, just said to her, look, isn't it strange how, like, everybody says we've got this kind of dynamic, and I don't necessarily want to do anything, but what do you think? Like, how do you feel about it? And she just shut me down. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't feel like that at all. I don't think we should talk, certainly for a little while, because this is weird. I think you've made it weird. So I sat on the bathroom floor. I just felt so ashamed of how badly I was doing at my degree, and if my parents knew how badly I was doing, I felt embarrassed that nobody knew and I wasn't telling my friends. I felt embarrassed that my flatmates found out, and then I just felt lonely and kind of hopeless that I'd lost this kind of one lifeline of communication and connection that I had in this friend, and that I had messed it up by opening my big mouth. So I thought I need to do something. I'm literally just thinking about the same thing over and over again every day. I just think about how rubbish everything is. So I thought I'm just you know what, I'm just going to go and look online at what I can do after university. You know, what options are out there. At least I can go and have a look. So I went online. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I went online. I think I looked at the graduate like top 100 list. And I'll be totally honest, I thought, well, I'll probably go to banking. The money seems good in banking, and I have no pull in any other direction. Like, I have no idea. So I started looking at the graduate scheme, stumbled across HSBC, and just watched a video of a lady who was quite senior. I think she was Spanish, and she spoke about her career and what she'd been able to do. And I just thought, wow, you know, I want to be her. She just seems like she's got her life in control. She was articulate, she was intelligent, she was dressed really smart. I was like, that's who I want to be. I want to work for HSBC. I want to get on the grad scheme. And so that became the focus from that minute on. That was my focus. I want to get a 2-1 because I want to work for HSBC and I want to get on the grad scheme. So that brings me on to my kind of, oh, that's me in university. I've got to show you that. That's my reality of university, catching up, sitting on my bed, hopelessly behind, panicking that I'm not going to do what I'm supposed to be doing. So my first point, so vision and goals, having a focus. So the number one thing that I start with in any session that I do is, what do you want? And this comes back time and time again. The amount of people who have no idea what they want, just kind of go with the flow. Now, the reason why I say this kind of focus is going with the flow sounds really nice. You know, it's kind of easy. You just go with the flow, see what happens. But you'll get to a stage where you'll get to a fork in the road and you'll just be dragged down whichever one the current is stronger. And you'll suddenly go, whoa, 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 I didn't choose this. This isn't the life I wanted. This isn't the career. This isn't the family. This isn't the whatever. And it's almost too late at that point because your kind of passiveness up until this point has just led you there. Now, a lot of people think about what they don't want. I don't want to be tired. I don't want to be stressed. I don't want to be poor. I don't want this job. But like I said, very few people can really pinpoint what they want and who they want to be. Why do they want to do that? Not just, I really want a job as this in this company, but I really want that because that will make me feel whatever, or I will feel fulfilled, or I will feel like I'm helping people and that's really important to me, or whatever it might be. And then the final kind of part of this is taking action. And this, I probably started that as the priority, to be perfectly honest. And this is the one everybody likes to kind of gloss over. This is the bit we don't like to do, which is actually doing something and taking some action. You know, it's really easy to be like, I want a 6-pack and I want to look great in a bikini. I need to go to the gym. Oh, yeah, I don't want to go to the gym. So the action bit is the absolute key to this. You can positive think all you like. You can think about what you want. You can be absolutely crystal clear on what you want. But if you have to do anything, you're probably not going to get it. And I'm not telling you guys this for your health. This is kind of science-backed. So there's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system, which is it kind of manages your fight or flight instinct in your brain, and it's on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And its job is to filter, distort, delete all of the external stimulus that is coming in all the time. And you might think, well, is there that much external stimulus? Well, right now, some of you are focusing on the tone of my voice. Some of you are focusing on my gestures. Some of you might be looking at my background. Some of you might be distracted with noise in your room or apartment, or maybe you can zone in on the feeling of your clothes touching your skin. There is so much going on that if you are aware of all of it, you just go crazy. So your reticular activating system just goes, you don't need to know that, you don't need to know that, you don't need to know that. Let's focus on what it is that's important. And its job is to, like I said, filter out whatever is going on around you. And if you're clear on what you want, for example, I really want to join a yoga class. Well, probably not in COVID, but I really want to join a yoga class. Yeah, okay. You will start to pick up on opportunities, conversations. You'll start to see things that you've never seen before. And it's not because they're just suddenly coming up and they weren't there before. It's just because this is now getting tuned into what you want. So a great example, have you guys ever looked for a car or bought a new car? And then as soon as you bought it, you literally see that car everywhere. like, I've never seen this car before and I'm literally seeing it 10 times a day. It's not because there's more cars, it's just because you are now tuned in to, oh, okay, I'm noticing that more, or an outfit perhaps, or a specific thing. You will start to notice it more. So when it comes to you sitting in Starbucks and overhearing a conversation, suddenly you'll hear, oh, they just said about a yoga class. That's funny. I was literally just thinking I might look for a yoga class. Or maybe a specific internship, or maybe a specific job or qualification. You will start to notice it on the job site. You will start to notice opportunities. And that's when the action kicks in. That's when you have to get up and go and do something, or apply for the job, or do something. So that's really my kind of first tip, super brief tip, if I can give that to you. Does it always work? Certainly not. But your chances improve tenfold. So that became my driving objective for my last year. I just worked so hard. I just wanted that life of that lady, and I knew what I had to do to get that. So I went home for the summer, got my results back, and I had got a 2.2. I think I'd missed out on a few percent. It was, it was almost more painful that it was like 3 or 4% off what I wanted it to be. And I got a 2.2. So I couldn't get on the graduate scheme. I wasn't accepted by HS. I couldn't even apply. And what do you think my communication was with myself at that point? Really not very positive. So I came home and just thought, I have put in so much effort. I've literally focused on nothing else, and it has materialized into nothing. It was 2009. I think we were at the height of the recession. There were no jobs. I'd gone back to South Wales, and I was like, great, I've got 50 grand's worth of debt, no job prospects. I've failed at my degree, and I probably can't get a job at a supermarket. Fantastic. So I, in my head, thought I was the biggest failure in the world. And failure as a subject, again, I could talk about this for I could do a whole session on failure, because there is something about failure that is in us that we just are terrified of. So failure is such a normal part of human life. It's all of us fail multiple times over and over again over lots of things. But for some reason, as humans, failure just derails us. And I guess that again, the kind of number one thing I would say with that is failure, you have to reframe it as it's an outcome, it's an education, it's something, but not failure. So it might not be the desired outcome, admittedly, it might not be what you wanted, but okay, it's an outcome, we move on. What can I do next time? What can I adjust in terms of my strategy to make sure I do it again? And most of us will say, that was a failure. And actually, there's no way of us saying that it was a failure. Often some of the biggest successes that we have started off as multiple failures. Some of the most successful people you can think of, the amount of failures they've had far outweigh the successes. You just hear about the success. One of the classic ones I love is Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination before he started his own company. Colonel Sanders, who KFC, I'm sure you know, the famous franchise, he was 65 years old on benefits, and he went to 1,009 restaurants with his chicken recipe before he got a yes. So he had 1,009 people say, absolutely not, I don't want your chicken recipe, looks rubbish. And by the same ilk, how many of you would say to a baby, at what point do you go, you know what, I think you should stop trying to walk, you're not a walker. You just wouldn't. It's crazy. You try again, but most of us will fail once and go, I didn't like that, fail a second time. There's no way we're going to do that again. Absolutely not. I don't want the judgment. I don't want to feel that, pain of it. No way. And the reality is that you have to try multiple times at stuff, not doing the same thing over and over and over again. That's crazy. But adjusting your strategy slightly and then trying again, adjust slightly, try again. And that's where you get the success. And arguably, can you ever really say that something's a failure? My 2.2, for example, actually turned out to be one of my, fueled me to be successful in other ways. And if I hadn't have got it, I think I would not have had the success I have had personally and professionally because of it. So if there's one thing I can kind of suggest, it's stay away from this idea that you are a failure. This is the worst thing in the world. It's not. It's just an outcome. Move on. Something else will come up. So my communication with myself at the time, as you can imagine, was probably not positive. Again, what's my focus? I'm a massive failure. What does it mean? I shouldn't try for things. I don't know why I do this. I'm not smart, I'm not clever, I am not destined to be successful. What am I going to do? Not try stuff again, because it really sucks when you work really hard at something and it doesn't pay off. So I went home with my kind of tail between my legs, and worked at a theme park, which is where I used to work in the summer at my hometown in Wales. And nothing other than good fortune meant that I bumped into a girl who I worked with called Becky. And we just got on really well, really quickly. Like, we had a chemistry, we had a connection, we were best friends straight away. And I started to think, oh my God, it's happening again. These kind of fit, this is not platonic for me, this is a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm not going to go through that again, and just kind of hope it goes away, which is lunacy. Now, thankfully, because Beck hadn't had the same experiences as me, she hadn't been through the same stuff as me, she was able to go, well, this is kind of weird, like, me and you, we've only ever been with men before, but it seems like we've got a bit of a connection, like maybe we should give it a go. And again, this is good fortune and nothing else. The change in my kind of confidence, the uplift of somebody believing in me, was just like an overnight thing. I was suddenly like, oh my God, like, somebody actually likes me, somebody cares about me, somebody loves me. Maybe I've been wrong about other stuff. Maybe I should go and try things. Maybe I should actually get back out there a little bit with my work or whatever else. And that's what I did. I don't know how it really popped into my head, but I think I might have passed an HSBC branch, and I just thought maybe I could apply for just like an ordinary job in HSBC, and maybe like I could say to someone, I'm really interested in the graduate scheme, maybe I could get on or do something, maybe it would be a foot in the door, maybe I should try it. And that's what I did. I looked online, I looked at what jobs they have. The nearest jobs they have were in Bristol, which was like 3 hours away from where I lived. And I applied for like the most junior customer advisor job in a branch that you can get. I applied, got it, and then they said, you need to move to Bristol, and that's what I did. And this is I think I've got a picture of my first flat, which I was incredibly proud of. That's all secondhand furniture that I probably can't afford to pay for, that I borrowed off my parents, I think. And I moved to Bristol, and it was scary. I didn't know anyone in Bristol. I was starting this whole new life and pursuing this whole career with HSBC because I was so certain that this was the right thing to do. I joined, and very quick, I was kind of worried about what it would be like. I thought, wow, it's going to be like Suits or something. It's going to be really serious, and it's a bank, so everyone's going to be really professional. And I got there and realized that it's really just a lot like school. Everybody's very friendly. You have your kind of successful people, you have your fast-paced people, you have your kind of slower people. It was fine, and I realized actually, I'm going to try and be humble about it and not presumptive, but I'm going to ask people what they think I should do. And again, that's kind of what I did. I just asked manager, how long do you think before I can get to the sort of same level of seniority as you would at the end of the graduate scheme, which was a 2-year scheme, and at the end you were given a managerial grade. And some people were like, oh God, 5 or 6 years minimum, and you'd have to have luck on your side, timing's coming up with jobs. I think you should probably let that dream go. And then other managers who I'd kind of stayed behind to see if I could catch them for a couple of minutes. And I would never be expectant or kind of presumptive in that they would help me, but I'd say, if you've got 2 minutes, have you got any suggestions about what I can do? I'd really love to be a manager, blah, 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 blah. And I worked my socks off, and I did jobs that weren't glamorous, is the first thing I will say. I have crawled up on my hands and knees to check a leaking roof in a pencil skirt because it was my job and no one else was there. I've cleaned sick off an ATM. I've been spat at. This is not fun, kind of corporate life that you expect. But I worked really, really hard. I got promoted into one job, which again meant that I would have to leave all of my friends in this little branch community that I had and move to another branch where everybody was like 50 years old. And I was 22. I was like, it's not really what I want to do, but again, if it gets me closer to the goal, I have to do it. And a couple of months later, I was promoted again. So I got my managerial appointment in 18 months, which beat the graduate scheme. And again, this isn't to impress you, it's more to impress upon you that so many people said I didn't have the experience, I didn't have whatever was needed, I didn't have the network or whatever it might be. But the reality was the opportunities did come up. And as long as I took action and did stuff, then the outcome was largely positive, certainly in my experience. So this is the point where I really kind of stress on people that you often won't have the resources that that you need. So for example, people always talk about, oh, I didn't have the money, I didn't have the time, I didn't have the qualification, I didn't have the network, etc. And that's all, those are all resources. But if you focus on being resourceful rather than not having the resources that you need, it's a game changer. Because the reality is there's someone who can give you advice, who can get you there quicker, who can give you the money, who can help you get the qualification or the experience or access to their network. There are so many things out there if you focus on being resourceful rather than looking at the resources that you need. And that's where having the right attitude and relationships is the game changer. So, you know, you guys might have had experience of this already. You know, often the person with the most experience doesn't get the job. Often the person who's most qualified doesn't get the job. And very often it's the relationships and the networks that you have that make the biggest difference. So if you can get better at building rapport, if you can get better at making connections quickly, if you can get better at putting yourself out there and introducing yourself or whatever it might be, that will absolutely help tenfold in terms of personal or professional goals that you're going for. And that certainly was the case with me. So I was I think I was like 23 at this point. I got promoted into a branch manager role, and it sounds cool, and I felt like it had made up for my 2-2, which I suppose was the biggest draw for me. Like I was, you know, I had some level of success, so I could kind of forget about my big failure in the background. But it didn't pay very well. So I was a branch manager. It sounded cool. I mean, I would just say at this point, I had no idea what I was doing. I was not necessarily a good manager. You know, half of the time I had no idea what I was doing. But, you know, the more you practice, the more you do, the more you start to go, oh, actually, you know, maybe I'm not that bad, or maybe I am getting better. And I started to think about my goals financially. I wanted to buy my own home at some point. I wanted to have, I didn't want to have that many things, but I wanted to not have stresses. I wanted to not get a bill or, you know, have my car go into the garage and panic if they said we need to do a bunch of work. I wanted a certain amount of freedom and, I guess, options in terms of finances so that I didn't have to stress and worry about things. And I knew that this job, it paid fine, but it wasn't great. So I did the same thing. I started to say to colleagues, when appropriate, I'm talking about kind of my development, I'm starting to think about financially what I want to do, and actually, you know, do you have any suggestions about jobs that perhaps a bit better paying, etc. It wasn't long, my area director gave me a call a few months later and said, you are not going to believe what's come up, an opportunity with the bank to do financial advisor exams. The bank will sponsor you to do it. They'll pay for the exams, and if successful, for me, I would over double my salary and become a financial advisor for the bank. And then they said, almost as a bonus, if anyone's willing to move to London, the bank will pay for relocation costs. So that means that they will pay for you to move, they'll pay you rent for a year, etc., etc. For me, financially, this was just like, oh my God, this is life-changing. There were only a couple of spots in the whole of the southwest and Wales. I rushed home. Beck had moved in with me at this point and joined the bank, actually, because she kind of wanted a bit of a stopgap. And so I said, you know, this is great. I've never thought about doing it before, but the opportunity is too big. Like, maybe we should both go for it, because even if one of us didn't get it and one of us did, we could still move to London. That'd be crazy. We applied and we both got onto the kind of scheme. We did the exams, which I hated because I didn't want to do any more exams, but kind of struggled through, again, thinking about what it would mean. And we moved to London. And the stuff I'm showing you on here is, so we were moved to £1 million flat in Fulham. And I know that because we checked it on Rightmove when we went to go and see it. It was so impressive. It was such an amazing part of London. I got given a brand new Mercedes because you got that as part of the package. And I worked in the in City of London, so in City, where there's kind of the gherkin and the walkie-talkie and everything. And it was just a world away from everything I had ever known. I'd never sat in a brand new car before. I had never been to City of London. I had never been around this level of wealth before. It was like being on The Apprentice every day. The guys that I would see were often on their lunch break, and they were traders or fund managers or brokers. And these guys would talk about multiple hundreds of thousands of pounds that they wanted to invest. And again, I'd never heard of these kind of sums of money before. And suddenly this kind of power of proximity and the peer group that you choose to surround yourself with, you know, I was pretty pleased with my new salary. And now all of a sudden I was like, this is rubbish. I really need to up my game. And that power of having this kind of peer group is it drags up your, you know, aspirations, your expectations. Suddenly my expectations were through the roof of what I could achieve financially, professionally. But I absolutely hated the job. And it's not that the job was bad. Elements of the job I really, really enjoyed. But other elements, I just couldn't get to it. It wasn't me. It wasn't ethically the way I wanted to do things. There were just a few people in the team I just didn't get on with. It didn't feel right ever. And it started to really wear on me. And it started to wear on me more because I felt bad that I wasn't enjoying, you know, people were commenting like, oh, you and Beth, you've got this nice new job, you've got this, you know, lovely home, you're doing all these exciting things. And really, I was like, yeah, but it's actually not that good. Like, I know it sounds good, but I'm not that happy. And having to internalize that, that year, I think in the space of like 8 or 9 months, I put on 3 stone. I was 3 stone heavier than I am now. And honestly, so much of it was driven by just feeling pretty rubbish and tired. At least I can look forward to food when I come home, and then feel worse about putting on weight, and then eat more food, and then you get into a really bad cycle. And that's what I did. I just kind of carried on with the job, but on a bit of a self-destruct. And it wasn't, I think it was a few months, Rebecca and I sat down, we said, we don't want to do this. And I was willing to have a pay cut. I didn't want to do this job. It didn't make me happy. And this is where I talk about money not being the driver. So there's a really, there's a misapprehension, I think, generally about people talking about money. People are very coy about it. I think it's still deemed as not appropriate if you kind of prioritize money. And there's nothing wrong with if you want to earn a certain salary, or if you want a certain amount of financial freedom or abundance, that's absolutely fine. But I think when you prioritize that above everything else, don't be surprised if it's not all it's cracked up to be. And that certainly was the case with me. You know, I only focused on money at a time. And when it came to the job and how unfulfilling it was, and how it just wasn't in alignment with perhaps what I wanted to do or how I wanted to do things, suddenly I didn't want it. I gave back the car. I exchanged it for a 8-year-old Toyota Yaris because we just bought a house and we didn't have really money for a car, and you didn't really need it in London. And we ended up, I guess this is where network does make a difference. I knew some colleagues who worked in our head office in Canary Wharf, and I applied at a few jobs, didn't get them, and then one came up that I did get, and both Beck and I actually around the same time moved to HSBC in Canary Wharf, which was just amazing. You know, I know this picture just doesn't do it justice. It's a really cool place to go and visit if you ever get the chance to go and have a little look. And the job I took was very much a stopgap. This was not a kind of career aspiration. It was almost just a breather. I just wanted to get out of where I had been, and it allowed us to decompress. We bought our own home. I got a dog, which was awesome. And we were both working on like the 36th floor of the Canary Wharf skyscraper, looking at the London skyline. And I was just feeling pretty pleased. I'm surprised at how on earth I had ended up there, considering my kind of background and credentials. So it wasn't super long, I think, before I had a tap on the shoulder from someone who said, hey, I remember you from Bristol. I think I might have a job that you might be interested in. And I was like, okay. And he said, I knew you. I think I left before you kind of properly started. But the job that's come up is the Chief Operating Officer of the UK and Europe needs a Chief of Staff. Now that sounds like a big, impressive job, because it is a big, impressive job, the person who does it. And he said the Chief of Staff role is, you know, it's a big deal. It's a job that I've done. And in terms of profile, that's really where it pays dividends. You've got, you know, a team of maybe 6,000 people over 12 countries. If you do well, you know, 6,000 people know you do well, and you can kind of pick your next job. For me, I just heard, so if I do really badly, 6,000 people are going to know that I've done really badly. I hesitated on this one. You know, most people would bite the hand. You know, if this job comes up, I'm sure you have equivalents in your careers. But I just sat on the fence for too long. Probably wasn't polite, in all honesty. And the reason why was because I had such a limiting belief about my own intelligence and what I was capable of. So I knew I'd done okay. Yeah, you know, I can learn things. I'm, I'm not stupid, but I'm not smart. I'm not academic. I've never excelled. I'm not one of those really, really intelligent, smart people. And this is a job I can't hide at. I've had good fortune and good luck up until this point, and I just want to kind of keep out of the limelight, just carry on doing what I'm doing. And I don't want to put myself out there because the risk is too great. And I knew that I couldn't kind of hide on this one. If the lady who was coming in to do the job, she was so smart, she was so accomplished, she was so senior, I didn't want to be around that in case I got found out for being really, really stupid. And so I took my time to answer whether I would do that job. And I guess it was, Beck, it was kind of the pressure of the pressure of almost saying no was worse. If I said no, that would absolutely be my career over. So I kind of had to say yes. I did, and I took that job. And the chief of staff role is, it's, on a good day, it's like being the chief of staff to the president. And on a bad day, it's like the devil wears Prada. So you will have to write papers, prepare meetings for them. You're kind of like a number two. So you act as sometimes an advisor, or you provide some counsel and things. You get a sense of what the feeling on the ground is that you might provide to them. And then other days, you just might be in the way if they're having a really rough day. I loved it, and it was incredibly challenging. I've cried in the toilets. I've worked till 4 o'clock in the morning. I've gotten to events at 6 o'clock in the morning with no preparation and just kind of blagged it on the day. But I really enjoyed the job, and I did that job for a few. It was my last job before my current role. And one of the things that really resonated with me and kind of started me on this path of kind of coaching and learning and understanding, why do we do things the way that we do, was a conversation with the lady one evening in Canary Wharf. So she had a site visit the following day. She was going to go up to Leeds. We were working late, and she said, would you mind coming with me to the Leeds site visit tomorrow? And it was weird because everything was prepared. The car was going to come pick her up. Someone was going to meet her at the event. It's quite like a royal visit when, kind of senior person goes to a site to meet teams. And I didn't really want to drive all the way up to Leeds. So I was like, yeah, of course, yeah, I can come. But was there any reason in particular why you wanted me to come along? And yeah, she kind of said one excuse, but we knew each other well enough I could probe a little bit. And in the end, she turned out saying that, well, the other kind of senior managers, they're so good, they're so charming, they know everybody's name, everybody loves them, and I'm just a bit of an introvert. I always just feel a bit awkward and a bit, but just a bit uncomfortable when I'm doing this stuff. And it was really weird for me because that's not how she was perceived at all. And I knew this from everybody else. I was like, well, what makes you think that? What has happened to make you think that? And again, from kind of like talking it through, it transpired that she said, I had an older sister growing up, and she was really extrovert. And I always got the feeling that everybody was drawn to her. She was kind of the funny, interesting, gregarious, outgoing one. And I felt like even my own friends would rather hang out with her than me. And so I've never really kind of grown into that part of my personality. And that just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it because she was so well liked. She was so accomplished. She had a wonderful, loving family. She had, an incredible job. She was so senior. She had, like, everything that you could possibly imagine that you would want from life, she has got. And I just thought, well, I think that if I got to that level, I would feel like that, but maybe I wouldn't now that you've said it. And this brings me on to limiting beliefs as a concept. And the truth is, we all have them. We have them about everything. And largely, they're just picked up, a lot from when we're young, as children, but we still do as adults. And they are like the guardrails of your life, because you won't go beyond them if that's what you really believe that you're capable of. So, again, as an illustration, baby elephants, I appreciate that's a horse on the screen, baby elephants are taught to stand still with a stake in the ground on a piece of, they're tied to a piece of rope, and the rope is really thick when they're young, and they try and pull and pull and pull and pull, and they can't break the rope, and eventually the trainer can change the rope for like literally just a piece of string, because the elephant as an adult doesn't really try to break away because they've never broken the rope before. And there was a fire, I think, back in like the 1920s at a circus, and a group of elephants had burned alive in the fire, which was horrific. And when they looked at it, they kind of went to go and see what had happened. They'd been tied to a small rack of bicycles, and they hadn't even tried to run away. they hadn't even tried to move because they had never broken the rope before. Why would it work now? And I appreciate that's morbid and kind of extreme, but I hope that it illustrates the point that I'm trying to make, which is, if you don't believe that you can do something, or if you believe something is a certain way, that is what it will become. So if you believe you're an introvert or you're extrovert or you're lazy or, life is hard, that's another good one. Life is really, really difficult, or relationships are hard, money is difficult to come by. You might have all of these kind of limiting beliefs that you don't realize that you have, that are kind of in there somewhere affecting your behavior. And the reason why they're so kind of not dangerous, but you need to be really careful of them, is that often that is the reality that you'll experience, even though it starts off as a belief. So a really, really, kind of trivial, crude example is, I was told I was bad at maths as a kid. I think I was like 14 or 15. I was told, you don't seem to have a mathematical brain. And so once I was told that, I believe, I'm just really bad. I'm really bad at math. I don't have a mathematical brain. And the action that I took is that I avoided maths like the plague, because I knew I didn't want to be bad at it, so I just avoided it. And then what would happen is, when I did go to do maths, I would be worse than I expected because I hadn't practiced, I hadn't done any. And then my feedback would be, see, I told you you're really bad at maths. And this loop just keeps going with everything. So it might be, again, that you believe that life is hard, you're too old, you're too young, you don't have a network, you don't have whatever. But this stuff starts, once it starts getting momentum, it starts to spiral. So I would really urge you to stop and have a look at what you believe deep down, your gut instinct. Make a list of relationships, work, money, community, whatever it might be, and see what automatically comes up, and think, is that fact, or have I just made this up? Is that actually fact, or is this just my perceived idea of what it is? And you would be surprised at how much stuff you picked up. So back to kind of my job then, I finished with that lady, and I got more into the realms of this stuff, of coaching, of mentoring. I'd always done it in this role, and I'd really enjoyed working with senior leaders, like looking at these concepts, and I wanted to do it more, and really for myself more than anything else. So I got qualified in Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which again, seeks to understand, why do we do things? Why do some people have addictions and some people don't? Why do some people make really quick positive changes and some people struggle their whole lives? And then I moved into this job, which is kind of, I guess, a global job, doing more of the same stuff for more people. And it's something I really, really enjoy. And it's certainly the bit of my career that I have enjoyed the most, because I feel like I'm doing what I'm best at, or certainly what I enjoy the most. So the last thing that I want to cover off, and I'm conscious of time here, guys, is fear, because this comes up a lot. And again, I'm going to try and cover it very super briefly, but you can have a goal. You can take your network. You can build relationships. You can get really clear on what it is that you want to do. But so many people say, yeah, but that's all well and good, Amy, but I'm too afraid to do stuff because it's really scary to put myself out there. And again, fear is, we have fears about everything: fear of failure, fear of success, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown, you name it. We're all afraid of something at some level, but the fear itself is not a bad thing. It can be used as a tool. And the idea that if you are afraid, then you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is absolutely true. So you can, if you're not afraid, you're probably not challenging yourself as much as you should. So it's not a bad thing. The second thing I'll cover off is the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins. And that's something that I still actively use. It's the 5-second rule. She wrote a book, but to be honest, you can probably just watch her TED Talk. When we start to panic and make a decision, maybe you're about to do an exam or public speaking or something that really terrifies you, there's something called the spotlight effect. So your brain suddenly starts to flood with cortisol and suddenly goes, oh my God, this is terrible. This is the worst thing in the world, and it's getting worse and it's getting worse. And the longer you leave it, the less likely you are to do it. Now, if you count backwards from 5, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you actually move your where you're firing up your brain in the middle of your part of your brain to the front of your brain, because you have to count backwards. And it just suppresses the cortisol, and it just brings you back to doing something else so your brain doesn't think about it. And that can be such a great catalyst when you want to do something. So for example, if I'm about to do something that's really scary, which I often do in work, or I'm terrified of spiders, so if I'm about to kill a spider or something, I will often 5-second rule myself to get back in control, and then we go. And the more you actually practice when I say go, we have to do the thing. It's like a muscle. The better you get at it. So certainly now, if I 5-second rule myself, and I used to be somebody who snoozed my alarm quite a lot. Absolutely not. No way now. Nothing that I would do. And I would encourage you guys, if you do the same, to give it a try. So again, fear really, people talk about courage as maybe the absence of fear, and actually courage is not that. Courage is, I feel afraid, but I just did it anyway. And courage isn't something someone can give you. It's in you. It's just something that you need to practice. And like I said, almost like a muscle. You need to do stuff that scares you. Try it again. Do stuff that scares you. Okay, maybe it wasn't so bad. Do stuff that scares you. And you'll suddenly become addicted to the feeling of being afraid, because you know it's going to challenge you. And that's really where the kind of fun comes from. And that's where your fulfillment comes from, is when you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. So the last thing I'm going to cover off, people often ask what happened to Beck. So Beck and I got married a few years ago. We've been together for 10 years. We are hoping to start a family next year. And of all the things I've shown you today, I appreciate it's cliche, but that's absolutely the thing I'm most proud of course, is my relationship with Beck and the life that we've built. We've been lucky enough to build together. So finally then, to kind of wrap up, I guess, to recap. So communication with yourself, those 3 decisions. What am I going to focus on? What does it mean? What am I going to do? Start to be aware of that in the moments that you're making decisions. Focus and take action. Be really clear on what it is that you want. Relationships, again, look at being resourceful rather than focusing on the resources that you don't have. Limiting beliefs, get clear on what those are and start working to get rid of them, or at least talking yourself out of them, because a lot of them are irrational. And then finally, fear. Try and find some tactics where, yes, it's a good thing, but you've just got to find a way to overcome it, because it's not something you don't want to have in your life going forward. I guess finally, so again, I do sessions like this. If anyone's interested, or if anyone would want to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn if you want to say hi or ask me a question or a comment. And obviously you can reach out to me, amy@amygillcoaching.com. So I am going to stop there and stop sharing my screen. I think that's going to work. And I think if we've got some questions, we can have some questions. Is that right, Dylan? Might need your help on this.
So I think everyone's still feeling a bit shy. Let's give them a little bit longer. But I have a question. What would you, if you had the opportunity, what would you say to yourself looking back in the past, when you got your 2-2? So what would Amy Gill now tell Amy Gill at that period of her life to do or to feel? I don't know.
I think probably the first thing is I would just try and reframe what the 2-2 was. So again, without going over the same thing, for me, it was a mark of absolute failure. It was the, cross I'd have to bear for the rest of my life as being, the person who failed at university. But very quick, not long after, I started to realize, oh my God, I'm so proud of my 2-2. So if it was me saying to myself now, I'd be like, I think that's an incredible achievement and reflects my time at university, which is life isn't perfect. Stuff happens often that you can't control. The fact that I was able to maintain an education, the fact that I was able to stay at university and come out with a 2-2, very nearly a 2-1, not that it matters, I think is incredible. And I would be really, really proud of that. And again, if I had got a 2-1, if I had actually got what I wanted, I think it would teach me a really bad lesson, which is, you can coast through things and not really try or apply yourself, and you'll probably be okay, which I think is a very dangerous lesson, especially later on in your career when you do things and you kind of don't fully try as hard as you can. So I think it was a great lesson, and I'm very fortunate to have had it at the time. So I really see it as a positive now. And I really genuinely mean that in terms of reframing it.
Well, I certainly agree with you and sympathise with what you said about being dangerous. We do have a question that's come in, and what were you? Oh, sorry, the questions are just appearing and they keep popping down. Yeah. What were you to take away from your experience at Brooks? Is the first question. So
what? Just in terms of my general experience at Brooks?
Yes, I think that's what the person meant.
So I loved the university. I picked Brooks before any other university. I loved the idea of coming to Oxford. I was a mad woman because I wanted to come to England, even though everybody else went to Cardiff. I really enjoyed the atmosphere in Brooks. I thought the tutors were fantastic. I enjoyed my course. I enjoyed the whole experience in terms of the university element. In terms of my time there, I guess it would kind of be the same as I just said, which is I don't feel bad about it at all. If anything, when anyone I get a chance to tell, especially people who are just going through their degrees or if recently graduated, there's an element of shame if you didn't get a 2-1. Oh my god, I didn't get a 2-1. I shouldn't talk about it. And I try and tell people as much as I can, you should be super proud of your 2-2, whatever the reason is. And it might be that you're kind of more resilient as a result. You just don't realize yet. You might have built a mental toughness around whatever else might have been going on. So yeah, my experience with Brooks was wholly positive in terms of the university.
Great. So the next question we have quite a few thank yous and saying it's been a great webinar. So hello, great talk, thanks. Have you ever had to respond to a question in an interview about failure?
I don't think I've had one that's like specifically on failure, but the one that they tend to go with, which is like your development area, I think comes up quite a lot. Out of your strengths and weaknesses, what are your weaknesses that you'd say? And I've certainly asked that question at interview also. It's a tough one because you're trying to balance, showing your competence and experience in an interview and trying to convey how, you're able to do this job you're applying for. And not draw too much attention to your weaknesses. So I would say the one easy answer to that, if that's your question, which hopefully it is to say, I'm perhaps a little bit too hard on myself, or, I challenge myself more than other people, which is actually a good thing. That's the kind of cop-out answer, I think, to what's your weakness. But I haven't had anyone that's like your significant failure. And I suppose if I did, I might even reference the 2-2. I might even reference that as the kind of perceived failure, but actually is a huge success and fueled me to do lots of other things that I think are successful in other ways. So yeah, I don't think I've had a failure question, but that would be my answer to a weaknesses question. That's helpful.
Great. The other one is, if you are looking for a career change, how can someone take a first step?
Oh, that's a good one. I guess it depends on what your very, very first step is. So if it was me going to take a complete career change, I guess I would start finding out a little bit more about the career. So online, obviously you can be an expert on anything in pretty much an afternoon. I would go and try and find out as much as I could in the industry, perhaps forums, again, kind of going back to this kind of hierarchy of needs. If for you a certain salary is number one, or work-life balance is number one, or travel or seniority, whatever it might be, try and establish what your hierarchy of needs are and see if that kind of aligns to whatever the new career might be. And then I would start, I don't think I mentioned it, but when I joined HSBC to start off with, I had nothing. I had no network, no contacts. My parents didn't know anyone. I just had nothing. I think I was too old for LinkedIn. Embarrassingly, I think I was too old for LinkedIn, or it wasn't a thing when I finished university. Whereas now LinkedIn is just like, you couldn't come up with anything better. Go through and start reaching out to people. If you get one response out of 20 messages that you send just saying, hey, I would love to chat to you about your job, I'm thinking about changing career, I appreciate you don't know who I am, so I'd be super grateful if you'd maybe spare me 15-20 minutes of your time to tell me a bit about what you do in your industry. I promise you somebody will respond and say, yeah, sure, I'll jump on it. I would, certainly. You'd be surprised how many people are willing to help you when you ask, not in a presumptive way, but just in a genuine way. So that's probably where I would start if I was going to go into a new career or career change, if that helps.
Great advice. We have, what would you change? Would you change any of your advice given the current climate? How can we stay motivated while applying for jobs in a highly competitive market, even after continual rejection?
It's tough. I mean, there's no part of me that would say, oh, this is really easy, smile and move on and think positively. Absolutely not. It's a really tough time at the minute. I guess we go through seasons in life, and this is winter for a lot of people. I guess I wouldn't change my advice, no, to be candid, because You know, in 2009, when I thought the recession was the worst thing in the world, I thought there were no opportunities. I thought there was nothing that I could do. There is still opportunity out there. And it is really, really hard when you are constantly getting knocked back. Absolutely. Again, I wouldn't say, you know, to shrug it off, it'll be absolutely fine. But your ability to be persistent, your ability to try and get feedback where you can, adjust your strategy, change approach. Okay, I might have to do 500 applications. The more comfortable you can get with the process, the less awful it's going to feel. The more you can focus on, okay, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And again, I don't know your personal circumstances, so apologies, but if there's a specific job that you're after, maybe it might be that actually you might have to do a sidestep, a bit like me, which was, I really wanted to be on a graduate scheme, but fundamentally I really wanted to be this lady who worked at HSBC. So it might be that you work in something that you didn't plan to. It might be that you take a sidestep. It might be that you do something that wasn't kind of part of your plan. And that's okay. I think, again, try and have confidence in, I'm going to do what I can control, which is, yes, I've been rejected for this, but this doesn't mean I'm a failure. This doesn't mean that I'm some terrible rejection. What's happened is someone has glanced at your CV and gone, not the right experience, or whatever it might be, or we've got someone more experienced, move on. They've moved on, you move on, just keep going. The more you can focus on, yes, that's my outcome, that's my outcome, that's my outcome. I don't doubt that you'll have success. So no, I wouldn't change my advice. I would just encourage you to keep trying. I'm sure you're doing a fab job. Keep it up, is what I would say.
Good. So we have another question relating to this. Well, I think you covered quite a lot of it. It's advice for addressing perceived lack of experience compared to other candidates. And then just, I think pretty much everyone's sent a thank you message. So
thank you. Very nice of you. It's very weird not being able to see people. I used to do this in real life with actual humans, and it's so much nicer being able to talk to people and, you know, speak in person. I think we all miss that. So in terms of experience, I have this now. I have had this in the last 18 months. This is nothing new. There will be times where you can, let's be honest. So there are times when experience is really, really key. And if there are people who are more experienced than you, they are going to beat you. And that's okay. There are, however, times where experience is kind of preferred. So people might have put it in the application as must have. I know I have put that in job applications, which is I must have experience in something specific when I'm hiring. But sometimes they've said it, and actually they would take comfort in you having a certain attitude or a certain perspective on it, and actually the experience isn't the be all and end all. So I certainly wouldn't be put off by any applications where they say you must have this amount, unless it's something like, you know, law or dentistry, or like a specific field where you really do need very, very specific specialist experience and a lot of it. I would always apply, and when someone says, you know, you don't have experience, or even if they don't, be the first one to offer it. I know that I may not have the experience that other candidates do. However, I think I've demonstrated my ability to learn quickly by doing X, Y, Z in your CV, or I think I've demonstrated this in other ways, or I have done, you know, pull out the things that are relevant and that are important. And again, as much time as you can spend on rapport building, the more connection you can have with the interviewer, the more you can convey to them and put them at ease that, yes, you might be the kind of second or third choice, but you're a good, you know, you'll be fun to work with, you're a good person, you've got that spark, they can rely on you to learn quickly. The experience requirement will kind of go down the list. And again, this isn't a hard and fast rule. This won't be with all of your applications, but I would say don't be afraid to address the experience question, because if you're thinking it, I guarantee the interviewer has seen it and gone, but if they're interviewing you, they're interested. So if you are at interview, you are on an even field. If someone says, I'm going to spend an hour listening to you and trying to, you are as in it as anybody else. So don't think the fight is over. So I would call out the experience bit head on would be my advice.
Brilliant. So I think that's all we have time for. I would just like to say thank you so much, Amy. I found personally very interesting and very useful, and just to say that we hope to host you in person as soon as it's possible, and if obviously you'd be interested. So thank you very much on behalf of Oxford Brookes and our alumni community, and congratulations. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.